Arizona, UK, are we getting close to a deal for Kyler Murray? We've heard nothing. But that doesn't mean they're not working toward making it happen. You know, a lot of times what will occur is, especially when there's been some ugliness in the media, some back and forth that's maybe unfortunate for everyone, mutual understanding, we're going to give it a rest here. We're going to stop. We're not going to say anything more. Gentleman's agreement. No more talking. Let's just focus on getting a deal done. It really shouldn't take that much time. Now, the problem is getting the two sides to agree on a value. What's the value? Where does Kyler Murray land in that range? 50 million to 30 million, top 10 quarterbacks, 50 to 30. Where does he land? That's going to be the challenge. But I think that both sides are very motivated to get it done before training camp starts. And if it doesn't, I think what we see with Kyler Murray is a hold-in, like TJ Watt last year. Shows up, participates in meetings, goes through all the mental aspects of getting ready for the season, but does not set foot on the field until he gets his contract. And look how it worked out for TJ Watt. He got the contract and he had a spectacular season in 2021. Clever Moniker 11. If the NFL finds the Texans did something wrong with Deshaun Watson, what kind of punishment consequences could they face? What's the worst case scenario? First of all, you have to believe that the NFL cares, that the NFL is going to do something about it. Is the NFL going to take a story that's already dominated the NFL news cycle for 15 months and make it even bigger by going after the Texans for failing to nip this thing in the bud when they had the chance? You know, a lot of times I think that the NFL looks the other way on violations of the rules because it doesn't want the controversy that comes from it. It doesn't want to have to stand up and say to the world, look at this. Corruption among our 32 franchises. Hey, we found another team that is doing something it shouldn't have done. There's another team doing something it shouldn't have done. How about that team over there doing something it shouldn't have done? At a certain point, you reach a critical mass, and that's when Congress doesn't just do a drive-by for the Commanders. It shows up permanently, and it's determined to regulate everything about you because it comes to the conclusion that it's not just one or two teams. Everybody is doing something they shouldn't be doing. And some would say that in the NFL, at some level, every team is doing something it shouldn't be doing, but there isn't the enforcement mechanism in place to expose it or the will to do so because of where it possibly could lead. Another one from Arizona, UK. Without an agent, can Lamar Jackson's contract be anything other than team friendly? No, it can't. Look, the Ravens can go so far the other way to create a contract that insulates Lamar Jackson from any criticism and the team from any criticism. See, that's the problem. Who's going to get criticized if this deal comes off as being grossly team friendly? It's going to be the Ravens for taking advantage of Lamar Jackson, just like the 49ers took advantage of Richard Sherman and the Broncos took advantage of Russell Okung when they were represented by themselves. That's the risk. I think if anything, to do this the right way, the Ravens almost have to overdo it with Lamar Jackson. And then if they overdo it, they're going to get criticized for allowing a player without an agent to get more from them than a player with an agent would get. It's a tough spot, but there's definitely a risk for the Ravens if they end up coming out of this with a deal where people say, wow, the Ravens really took advantage of their franchise quarterback who they supposedly love, but they didn't love him at the bargaining table. They got the best possible deal they could for them, which means not the best possible deal for him. Oh, boy. JPA football, Mr. Bonwell. Can you talk about the Schefter story you posted today and explain why he is still getting breaking news even with all the turmoil? Look, here's how it goes. And it's a very simple process, and it's laid out in the item that was posted by Ben Strauss of the Washington Post. Schefter has managed to create systematically over a course of time with his Twitter platform as the primary vehicle for this, a machine that is powerful enough to allow him to use that to leverage teams and agents and coaches and whoever for scoops. Hey, look at what I can do for your news. Why would you give the news to this one or this one or this one? You give it to me, I break it. Look at all the impressions. Look at all the people that are going to see it. You want maximum exposure for your news, you give it to me. So he convinces someone to do it. He gets more scoops. As he gets more scoops, it continues to build. As it continues to build, he leverages it for more scoops, and it goes on and on and on. And along the way, every once in a while, you just have to tolerate the possibility that in your effort to take that scoop, to take that information and turn it into the end result, which he's looking for is to be first in front of everyone else, there may be some missteps. There may be some mistakes. You may step in a little poop on the way to the finish line. You won the race, but you're going to spend the rest of the day with a twig digging it. And anybody who grew up in the 70s or 80s and, when kids actually went outside can relate to finding the right size twig that can dig all of that out of your tread on the bottom of your shoes. Anyway, the other side of it is every once in a while, you just kind of have to hold your nose. You got to hold your nose and take one for the benefit of the greater good. Post a self-serving tweet, a quid pro quo, something that carries the water for a player or an agent, like the Dalvin Cook and Deshaun Watson tweets, and Shepard says, oh, I wasn't carrying anyone's water. Of course you're going to say that. That's the first rule of carrying water. You never admit that you're carrying water. But to the trained eye, it's obvious. You'll see the tweets when he has an agenda other than just breaking news. You'll see it. You know what it is. People who pay attention know what he's doing. It's all about making sure that he is at the front of the line as often as possible to get that information 5 minutes before it's announced. Vast majority of what he reports is 5 minutes before it's otherwise announced. And I mentioned Miles Simmons' experience when he worked with either the Rams or the Panthers. He worked with both teams. He mentioned it on PFT PM. If I had to guess, I'd say it was the Rams, but I don't know. The idea that it was all engineered. Okay, we're going to announce this move. Here's how it's going to go. We're going to tell Schefter about it. He's going to report it. And then 5 minutes later, we're going to announce it. Okay, that's going to be the mechanism here. Because with nearly 10 million Twitter followers, you're going to get more attention if you give it to him before you put it on your own platform. Why waste the opportunity to curry favor with someone like Schefter and break it yourself when you can give him the 5 minute heads up? And what's it matter? It's 5 minutes. The other side of it too, and I don't know how relevant this is because Schefter's just not in that business of being critical of anyone. Every once in a while, you'll see him retweet something that is critical that was posted by one of his colleagues, but it's never his voice. It's never his opinion. He has minimal opinions. But one of the reasons to single someone out and give them a scoop is you think that part of the quid pro quo isn't just, hey, maybe once in a while you'll tweet something that's good for me, maybe bad for you, but good for me, but also you'll leave me alone. It's kind of like protection. Insurance against being harassed and harangued by a given reporter. Hey, if we give you that scoop, we kind of expect you to look the other way when we step in crap. That's part of the game too. So I've been in it for 21 years. I know how it works, and I know it when I see it. And it's obvious that the Cook tweet, the Watson tweet, that's a byproduct, a conscious decision made to periodically put yourself in position to be criticized, all in the name of the greater good of feeding the beast that continues to grow and grow and grow, and that is his most valuable asset, the Twitter page. If Twitter ever goes away, you have to find another platform. But you take away that 10 million follower fire hose, that levels the playing field dramatically, and it causes them to go back to square one or close to it and do it all over again. All right. JR, the boss man, do you think the NFL will ever go to a 20-game schedule with no preseason to increase meaningful inventory for TV partners and fans, especially PSL and season ticket holders? I can't rule it out. I think 18 is the limit for now, but I think at some point they'll make a push to go to 19 or 20. Probably not in my lifetime, probably years from now. But there's too much money to be made through football games that are meaningful. Why are we staging games that are meaningless? Let's have games that are meaningful when you consider how much money you can make from them, not just TV rights, but gambling, real time, micro betting as the game unfolds. I guess people could do it for preseason too, but it's just got a different feel. You're going to have a much greater likelihood of drawing people in to place bets from the beginning of the game to the end of the game when it's a game that counts. Hey, we're doing it anyway. We got 20 games anyway. That was the excuse they used to go from 16 to 17. Hey, we're already playing 20 games. We've always played 20 games back in the 70s. before they went to 16 games. It was 14 regular season games and 6 preseason games. How messed up is that? But that's what it took to get your guys ready, because at the end of the season, they went home, they threw the cleats in the mud room, and they didn't do anything. They watched bowling and ate pork rinds and smoked cigarettes. They didn't stay in shape. They needed that time to get ready for the 14-game grind. Now, they don't need that. I mentioned TJ Watt earlier. He needed nothing to be ready for week 1. Nothing. He was already ready for week 1. So I could see it. I just don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. What else do we have here? Jeremy Dodd, who was on the NFL Executive Committee, is this committee strong enough to get Snyder to sell the team? Also, intrigued by your background. What is directly behind you, and did Mrs. PFT help with your setup? I don't have the list in front of me of the current members of the NFL Executive Committee, and I think that question comes from the reality that the Constitution and bylaws would allow the commissioner, if he so desires, to refer to the executive committee the possibility of forcing Daniel Snyder to sell the team. I still don't think they're ever going to do it. I don't think they want the fight. I think they know he will fight and fight and fight, and he will sue them anywhere and everywhere in order to try to hold on to the team. So I don't think it matters, because I really don't think the NFL has the stomach to try to push him out, because they know what it will mean. And also, even if they win, then they got to worry about him leaking to reporters all sorts of negative things about other owners that could cause a domino effect of more owners eventually being in trouble. What is behind me? Here's where I am. And I'm trying to look without turning around. We have, in the house that we bought 8 years ago, they called it a wine room. It's kind of a wine cellar. It's kind of a basement. And it's got right there, it's got a little refrigerator that you keep, wine that is meant to be refrigerated in. On the other side of the wall is a bunch of racks that are empty, because we don't drink enough. Why do I need 1,000 bottles of wine when I drink one at a time? Like I'm not going to host a 10,000 person party at the house. I don't need to have a huge inventory of wine, but that's on the other side of the room. And you got wine glasses hanging up. You got, I think Jill put that stuff back there. You've got Ace Frehley, Walter Payton, and one of the guys, Statler or Waldorf, because the guy that is there looked like my dad. And when the Muppet Show was popular, I actually bought that for my dad, and he had that on his desk at our house for years. So when he died, I brought it here, and my main goal is don't break it. But it's a little, and it's got a, like you could put, I don't know if it holds hard-boiled eggs or what. It's curved. It's weird. But I only bought the one that looked like my dad. It was probably, $1.50 back in 1978. But the Statler or Waldorf without the mustache, the skinny one, looked like my dad. And my dad looked like that forever. Like when he was younger than me, he looked like that. So that's what that is. Not high end. And every once in a while, Room Raider gets involved if I'm on like MSNBC or something. So they're big on fruit or like green things in the shot. One time I actually brought down corn in the husk and arranged it in a bowl back there. So anyway, the best part about it is there is a router 5 feet away. So no hiccups, no glitches, ultra high speed, because also set up that you can't see is my son's PS5 with his monitor right next to the router. So maximum speed, no lagging, no issues, no problems. All right, let's see what else we have here. Let's roll on. Can we have a countdown clock to July 25, please? That comes from our good friend Pauline in the UK. I was thinking of that earlier because we were having fun with the countdown clock back during the draft. Look, it's been 3 weeks now and 1 day that the show's been off. And I was ready to go the Monday, the first week. And the only good thing about this time off is it allows me to focus on some things that get otherwise ignored, that you just don't have time for, and you kind of get your ducks in a row for football season, get a physical, other things that just need to be taken care of, that once it starts, you just don't have time for it. Some business related issues. But I, as evidenced by the fact that I've been going on and on here already for about 45 minutes, I miss it. And yes, we should have a countdown clock for PFT OT as to when PFT Live returns. July 25. Hopefully Sky Sports we'll televise the show that night, and I won't have a bunch of emails from our very loyal and passionate and zealous fans in the UK who, and we appreciate you. There's no sarcasm there. I could do without the 100 emails that I get when the show isn't on for reasons that I can't control, but we do appreciate you very much. Here's one more from Ispy. There's speculation Gronk may come back mid-year. Whether he does or not, do you see that becoming an option for some players as the league increases the length of the season? I'm surprised it hasn't already happened. I thought Brett Favre was going to do it at one point, kind of like the Roger Clemens approach. I think Gronk will do it potentially this year. Remember his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, the only time an agent has called BS on a client, went public and said, yeah, I don't think he's retired this season or next season. I think next season is one to watch because I think Tom Brady's going to potentially end up playing for somebody else. And here comes Gronk. Let's win a Super Bowl with a third different team. But if the Bucs are doing well and we get to November, December, I could see him come back. And because he's a free agent, see, he's not on the reserve retired list. If a guy's on the reserve retired list, there is a hard deadline for coming back. If you're a free agent, you can come back whenever you want. He can come back. They make it to the Super Bowl. He can come back just for the Super Bowl if he wants to. JR, the boss man, where do you think Julio Jones ultimately ends up signing? I think there's a chance he may be done. I think there's a chance he's not going to get the kind of offer that causes him to play. And I think for any veteran player who's made a good bit of money, and he's made a great bit of money over his career, when it's down to playing one more year, you have to ask yourself, is what I'm being offered worth it to me? Is it worth doing everything I have to do to play another season? And he very well may be at the point where he just says it's not worth it. They're not offering enough. When Marvin Harrison was released by the Colts at a time when he was due to make $9 million, which was top of the market, he never played again because no one offered him enough to make it worth his while. Now, I think he wanted his $9 million, but he never played again because the offer never got to the point where he said, it's worth it to me to keep doing this. And I think for Julio Jones, we've seen a decline. It's real. He can't stay healthy, and that's fine. That's fine. Look, when you play football that many years, at some point your body gets to a point where it's not going to cooperate anymore. We age, we change. For the guys entering the league, they feel like it's never going to happen. For the guys who have been in the league for more than a decade, they understand. So I think that he doesn't play, but to tie it back to one of the earlier questions, maybe he's in that category of folks like Gronk, who at the right time, right after an injury, great opportunity to get that elusive ring. Maybe we see Julio Jones, but he's got to stay in shape. That's the other side of it. You're going to jump on a team's bandwagon because they have need or because they have luxury as they get closer to a Super Bowl. You better be ready to go. So he better be putting in the work to be ready to go so he can walk right through the door, get himself up to speed on the offense. And then by the time playoffs roll around, maybe he can make a difference. But it was disappointing last year with the Titans. And I think that sent the message to a lot of people that today's Julio Jones is a far cry from the one that we saw dominating in the Super Bowl and would have been the MVP, frankly, if the Falcons had managed to finish the job. We're finishing the job. I went longer than I wanted to today, but that's okay. Thank you for joining us. PFT OT signing off for now, probably tomorrow, although after going for about 45 minutes a day, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be driven by the news. There wasn't a whole lot today, but we still found plenty to talk about. We'll see where we are tomorrow. Maybe we'll do it on Wednesday. Maybe we won't. Stay tuned to find out.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.